Welcome to Wednesdays Live. If you're watching the replay later, it's okay. Doesn't matter if it's not Wednesday when you're watching this, because this video is going to be a timeless for now video telling you how to find out who is accepting flight attendant applications. The safe way, the most effective way, efficient way to find out who is accepting flight attendant applications in the United States. So first of all, I'm Abby Unger, the owner of Flight Attendant Career Connection, and I help aspiring flight attendants land their dream job faster and with less frustration. And we do that through coaching, encouragement, resources, and community. So I'm excited to share this with you today because I think it's one of the most, it can be one of the more confusing and also dangerous / risky parts of applying to become a flight attendant is making sure that you're applying in a legitimate place on the one hand, and also not missing an opportunity if your dream airline opens applications for 4 hours at a time like Southwest does. Okay, so let's talk about how to find out who is hiring. First thing we're going to do is we're only going to apply to an airline, to a flight attendant position from the airline's website. So there's lots of different ways to kind of find out who's hiring, but you want to make sure that you're not submitting an application or a resume through any kind of portal or any kind of messenger or any kind of email or any kind of anything that is not the actual airline's website. Okay, so if you see a LinkedIn post, it should link you to the airline's website and you can apply there. It should not, it's okay from time to time, maybe there's a recruiter for maybe an airline that is wanting to connect with people and they'll say like, send me a DM. Yeah, that's okay to a point. I mean, still like, anytime anyone's sliding into the DMs, we want to have our high alerts on, right? But as long as they are then sharing with you a link to the website to apply, that's okay. But if they're saying, hey, send me a photo of you, your passport, your resume, your social security number, and I'm going to get you to the top of the list. Red flags, do not do it. Okay, so now that we have talked about the risk or the what to avoid, let's talk about how to find out how to apply to become a flight attendant, because right now there is a lot of opportunity. But sometimes I talk to people and they say, and I'll say, you know, it's so exciting, there's so much opportunity, and they'll say, yeah, but I just checked and United and Delta and American are not hiring. And that's the only airlines they know about. That's the only airline they've ever heard of. That's the only thing that they know to do, is to look at those airlines. So what I want you to do is in the description of this, I'm going to see if I can share. I don't know if I can share from here. Let me just see very quickly. I don't share, create a video. No, I don't think so. Okay, so I don't think that I can screen share in here. That's okay. We're just going to keep on rolling. So even though we can't screen share, there is a link. I can't show you, but there is a link in the description or in the comments, wherever you're happening to watch this video, this replay, that will take you to a page on my website, abbyyunger.org/airline listings. On this page is all of the airlines in the United States. So the airlines are always listed there. And next to the airline, if they are accepting applications, will be the words accepting applications. So all the airlines are always there, which allows you to get curious. So if you go visit that site and that page and you say, oh, I've never heard of Key Lime Airways. I've never heard of Raven Alaska. I've never heard of Omni. I've never heard of Envoy, PSA. I've never heard of these airlines. You can click on their name and it takes you to their website and you can start to learn about that airline. Maybe that airline has a base in your city. Maybe that airline does some kind of flying that you like. Maybe that airline is just something that you're now curious and now you just have more information about aviation. But that's why I leave all the airlines on the page. This sometimes confuses people because they go to the page and they see the word American Airlines and then they email me and say, American Airlines is not hiring, you need to take it off your list. But that's not how the list works. Okay, the list is there so that you can discover and learn about all the different airline opportunities that exist in the United States. And then when they are accepting applications, it's kind of a quick way to glance and see like, oh, they're accepting applications. Okay, so that's another thing that I wanted to kind of clarify. So there's two different terms that we use kind of interchangeably that actually have pretty different meanings, right? One is accepting applications and the other one is hiring. So who's hiring? That means they are hiring new flight attendants. New flight attendants are being interviewed. New flight attendants are going to training. New flight attendants are coming out on the line. We are hiring new people to join our company. We are actively training and hiring people to join our company. That's who's hiring. That's different than who is accepting applications. Okay, so performing because there's other I don't know what that means. Okay, hopefully it said I was experiencing performance issues. Sounds like a personal problem. Okay, hopefully we're okay. Anyways, so accepting applications is different than hiring. So this is what I mean. For example, Southwest Airlines will accept applications periodically. It used to be every 24 months. Then it kind of was 18 months. Recently, we've seen much closer, less time in between application openings, but they accept applications for like 4 to 6 hours, and then they hire for 18 months off those applications. So people sometimes get confused because they're like, I see people interviewing. I just got my interview request from Southwest. I just got my training date from Southwest. I just graduated from Southwest. And they're like, where are these people applying? Well, they applied in January. They applied last April. They applied a while ago. So that's kind of the difference between who's hiring and who's accepting applications. So the list on my website is really who is currently accepting applications. Even though it says who's hiring at the top, that's just because that's the more common terminology. Okay, so who's hiring can be different than who's accepting applications at the moment. And another thing to think about is if you have an airline that you really have your eye on and they don't open very often, if you go to their careers website, most of these airlines will let you set up an alert. So you can go ahead and create a profile and tell them that you're interested in in-flight or flight attendant, and they should email you when that job posts. Sometimes they'll even email you beforehand. Some airlines will announce to their current employees and say, tell your friends and family in a few days or on this day or at this time, we're going to be accepting applications. Southwest is really good about that. JetBlue does it. I think United did it recently. Alaska will do it. And so we'll see sometimes in the Facebook group, or even just on social media, that all of a sudden it's like, get ready, here it is, it's coming, and it gets really exciting, and there's lots of posts about it. I try to make sure all the posts are approved into the group so that it's like constantly so people don't miss it. But another thing that happens is I send out an email to my email list. So I have a link in the description. If you'd like to join the email list, you get like about a weekly newsletter. I shoot for a weekly, sometimes it's a little longer, but of just like tips or what's going on. But also in between those newsletters, best believe when Southwest, when my husband who works for them says they sent the email that says tell your friends and family, I tell my friends and family on my email list. All my friends on my email list. So I mean, it's not private information. They ask you to publish it. It's public information that they want help getting out. So it's nothing like scandalous, but that's another good way. So if you're not maybe on social media that day, but you check your email, then you would get it. So that's another way to find out. Now, I don't send out alerts every time everyone starts accepting applications, because some do it pretty regularly. And so more often than not, they are accepting applications. So it's not an announcement worthy kind of thing, but you can find out those airlines on the who's hiring list. All right, so that's a little bit about how to find out who is hiring. Now, there are on the list, I wonder if I could show you on my phone what the list looks like, because there's lots of different categories on there. I put a lot of thought into how to organize that list. So we could have done it alphabetically, but I chose not to do it alphabetically, and instead I chose to do it I wonder if I'm going to be able to. Let's see. Let's see if we can do it. FACC. Let's get so nervous. But I think if I can show you. Yeah, there we go. Click here to see the list. Okay, so here is. Okay, this is what the page looks like, right? Then as you scroll, it's got the instructions here. Then the first section that we have is the legacy carriers. A legacy carrier is an airline that, as far as I understand it, there's some confusion about the words mainline, major, and legacy. People kind of use them a little bit interchangeably. But a legacy carrier is a carrier who was in operation before deregulation. I believe that is the case. Okay, if I'm wrong, one of you aviation scholars help me out. But that's how I understand it. So, but for us, deregulation happened like in the 70s. So, and most of you are probably like, what does that even mean? It doesn't matter. What it means is these are the legacy carriers. These are the carriers that everyone knows. These are the brands that are out there that everyone knows. Okay. So we're talking about Alaska, American, Delta, Hawaiian, and United. All right. Those are legacy carriers. I also, kind of consider them mainline because in a lot of ways, except for Hawaiian Airlines, they all have a regional carrier aspect to their operation. American, Alaska, Delta, and United all have regional carriers that operate some flights for them. They partner with some regional carriers. Now, Hawaiian doesn't have a regional partner, but they do have sort of a regional operation in their inner island. They have a smaller aircraft and specific bid lines for that. So, I guess I still wouldn't call them mainline if we're defining it that way, but they are definitely legacy carrier. 4 years now? Okay, so those are the legacy carriers. Those are the ones we know. The next thing on the list is regional airlines. Okay, regional airlines. It went back. Let's click here to see the list. So regional airlines. Okay, once you're in the category, they are alphabetical. So we've got Air Wisconsin, Commute Air, Connect Air, Denver Air Connection, Endeavor Air, Envoy, GoJet, Horizon, Key Lime Air, Mesa Air, PSA Airlines, Piedmont, Republic Airlines, Silver / Seabourn Airlines. They're owned by the same company, and SkyWest Airlines. These are regional airlines. Regional airlines operate flights for those legacy carriers. So the way that aviation works is we know that these major airlines have hubs, right? We call it a hub, and it's called a hub and spoke model is actually what they're doing. So a hub and spoke model, they have a hub like a wagon wheel, like an Oregon Trail wagon wheel. So you have a hub, and then you have spokes that go out. Some of these spokes, which are routes, are a lot of people want to go there. But some of these routes, they go to smaller cities or they're closer, so they want to do it more frequent. Like there's all different reasons why you would put a regional, why less people would want to go there at any given moment. So instead of putting a 787 on a flight that which holds hundreds of people on a flight that only needs room for 45 people, the airlines have figured out that they could actually hire a company that has all 50-seater jets or all 70-seater jets or a mix of 50 and 70-seater jets, all smaller jets. If they hire them, they have them come on, they contract out some of that work. So they're saying, why don't you operate this flight for me? You'll operate it under my name. So they hire SkyWest to operate some of the flights. So SkyWest will operate a flight for American. Maybe it's, I don't even know what a smaller one. Maybe it's like Lubbock to, I don't know. Let's do United, like Lubbock to Houston. I couldn't think of where they would go in American. And so there's not a lot of people that want to go on that flight. They do it like 3 times a day. They only need a total of maybe 150 seats. to go every day, instead of doing one big plane or instead of doing 3 planes that are only a third full, they now hire it out to SkyWest to operate that flight for them. So when you are working on a regional plane, you're still operating with the same service flow, service guidelines as that mainline carrier. And you're representing that mainline carrier. You're giving that Delta level service or that American service or that United level service. Now, the thing that is important, I think, to know about regionals, well, there's a couple things. I'm going to tell you a couple of things I think are important. One is their pay rate has increased significantly. We're talking like almost tripled in the last 12 to 18 months. Okay, so if you read a post that says regional flight attendants can't make enough to get out of, make below poverty level, well, now they're kind of like on the line. All right, not exactly. It's a little bit more than that. But we went from seeing things like $16 an hour to $28 an hour. I guess that's not triple, that's just double. So doubling the revenue from like $18,000 a year to closer to like $35,000 a year as a base pay. So still, we're not like stacking cash on this, but that's definitely it's still a huge increase in pay. Okay, so that's one thing I want you to know about regional. Another thing is regionals are hiring a lot right now. One of the reasons that they are hiring is attrition. Okay, it's both growth and attrition. Aviation is just growing in general. I just saw that the Friday before 4th of July, just this last week, Friday before 4th of July, the number of people that went through TSA screening surpassed the most people who had ever gone through before, which we saw the Sunday after Thanksgiving in 2019. So we are now officially more passengers than pre-pandemic levels. So we are back up pre-pandemic. So everyone's growing. So that's one reason regionals are hiring so much, is because of growth in general. As American grows, then Piedmont, PSA, and Envoy grow. As Alaska grows, Horizon grows. They all grow. Okay, now that's one reason. The other reason is attrition. Attrition means people leaving the company. Now, there's lots of reasons people leave a company, but right now, one of the main reasons that people are leaving regional carriers, from my experience, the reason, because I know people are gonna be like, that's not why I left, but that's okay, is to go to a major airline. So because Delta is hiring 6,000 flight attendants right now, if you've been a regional flight attendant for a little bit and you love being a flight attendant, you're probably going to want to go to Delta. So you're going to apply and there's opportunity and you're going to go. So you've left PSA, not because you don't like it, not because you were miserable and poor, but because you loved it so much that you took advantage of a better opportunity. Okay. So I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients who have either gone to a regional first as a step towards their main line, or maybe they've been with a regional for a long time and now they've got a good gig going, but there's so much opportunity out there with the big boys that they just have to throw their hat in the ring and then they get the job. Okay, so don't be scared of a regional. I saw on the Facebook this morning, made me so mad. Somebody said, don't waste your time with a regional. I flew for a regional. I flew for a mainline first, actually, and then I flew for a regional. So I've flown for both, and I had amazing experiences at both, and I enjoyed being a flight attendant at both. So please don't let a regional scare you, especially if it is in your hometown, if you don't have to commute, if that's where you've got your job offer. Please don't sleep on regionals, okay? Last thing that you need to know about regionals is that several of them are owned by the same company that their parent airline is owned by. So what that means is Alaska Airlines Group, I'm not sure which way it is, but Alaska owns Horizon. Okay, so Horizon is the regional, and Horizon and Alaska actually have a agreement where Alaska will hire a certain percentage of their new flight attendants from the Horizon flight attendant work group. So if that is something that you would like to know how to get a leg up, that's one of the only leg up opportunities that there is lowering, is just kind of increasing your odds a little bit because you are part of a mandatory hire group. That doesn't mean they have to hire you, but they're going to hire a percentage of their flight attendants out of that Horizon group. And again, think about attrition. That means Horizon flight attendants are going to mainline Alaska. They've got to be replaced. So that's why Horizon maybe has openings. Nothing bad. Now, sometimes people don't like working at regionals. Yes, everybody has a horror story, but I can tell you that I've heard a horror story, sad story, heartbreaking story about every single airline on that list. All of them. All of them. And I've heard amazing stories, way more amazing stories about all of them than I've heard negative. Okay, so that one, I want to tell you about that. The other one, American Airlines Group owns PSA, Piedmont, and Envoy. So you get some of the same perks that you would get as a mainline flight attendant, as an American Airlines flight attendant. They wear the same uniforms. They have the same flight benefits. And a couple years ago, American gave out 2 round-trip tickets anywhere in the world or something like that. I didn't get one, so I wasn't reading the fine print, to all of their employees. And that was their American Airlines employees and their Piedmont and their PSA and their Envoy employees, because they're all employed by the same parent company, okay? So you do get a little bit of perk there. And then the other one is Endeavor. Endeavor is owned by Delta. Okay, they have a little bit of an agreement where if you've been an Endeavor flight attendant for a certain amount of time, I believe it's 2 years, and you've worked a certain amount of hours, which from my understanding is a little bit difficult to hit, then you can apply to be a Delta flight attendant and skip some of the steps. That's my understanding of their program. So there's a little bit of a program. It's not quite as, robust as the Alaska one, but Endeavor does have a program with Delta that's fairly new. Okay, so that is that's the regionals. Now let's talk about low-cost carriers. Okay, low-cost carriers. These low-cost carriers, this list actually is low-cost carriers and ultra low-cost carriers together in the same list. So what's the difference? Low-cost carriers are airlines that still bundle their fares. So this is JetBlue and Southwest are low-cost carriers, but they offer they don't offer as many amenities. Although JetBlue is actually pretty quickly moving itself into a different category, because they do fly internationally. They fly to Europe. They have a beautiful Mint service, which is their first class service. So they started as a low-cost carrier. I've still got them on the low-cost carrier. I mean, they almost need their own little spot now, because they weren't here before deregulation, so they can't really go to legacy. But anyways, okay, so they're low-cost carriers. I digress. And Southwest, okay, so they don't bundle the fares. They do bundle the fares. Ultra low-cost carriers offer an unbundled option when you fly with them. So think about it this way. If you go to the movies, you buy your ticket, and that gives you your seat. That's all. If you want popcorn, then you pay more for popcorn. If you want a drink, you pay to get a drink. If you want drink and a popcorn, you can buy a discounted combo to go with your ticket. If you know you want all that, you could just go ahead and buy on the website beforehand and save a little bit of money and get all the things that you want and the candy. And if you want a seat that's a little bit different, then maybe you pay a little bit more for a seat that's a little bit better. Okay, that is how ultra low cost carriers work. This is different than how most airlines sell tickets, and so through the years there's been a bit of a learning curve as they have educated the public on how they sell tickets, because some people still get surprised that when they pay $18 for a flight that it doesn't come with a full meal in economy or anything else, right? So that is what they have kind of gone through over the last, while they've started. So I think it's like 20 years maybe or so. Now, let's talk about these airlines. These are the airlines, especially ultra low cost carriers, where it is important for you to take into consideration the happiness and the contentment of the employees over the happiness and the contentment and the Facebook viral nastiness of people who are mad. So what I mean by that is if you start Googling around some of these airlines, you're going to hear like, stories that like, I'll never fly them again, or they charged me, or they're giving a commission to their employees to make sure my bag doesn't fit. Well, the bag never fit in the first place, but anyways. So like there's kind of a lot of kind of like, I'll never fly them again. I'll never go to McDonald's again. It's like that kind of attitude. Now, that's not what I'm worried about as an employee. As an employee, I'm not super worried about, I want to do a good job, but I'm not as worried about just what my, neighbor's dad thinks about the airline as I am about the employees. Are they well compensated? Do they enjoy their work? Do they enjoy their layovers? Do they have cute uniforms? Cute uniforms means that the company has invested in their flight attendants, in their staff. If the uniform is cute, that means they spent money to make them cute. Okay? That's all I'm saying. So the fact that Spirit has a cute uniform shows me that their leadership thought that it was important for them to feel good and confident and have cute uniform. And they invested money in that. So is the reviews from the employees fairly positive? Now, of course, there's always outliers, like I said. But I just think that's important because sometimes people will say, I don't want to fly for one of those airlines. I've heard bad things. And I'm like, have you heard bad things from people who work there? Because if you haven't heard only bad things from people who work there, or if you haven't heard anything from people who work there, then maybe open your mind and go a little bit deeper. Okay? There's so much growth at Spirit, so much growth at Frontier. You can hold a line so fast. You can get base where you want to get base. They're basically saying, tell us where you want to get base in a lot of cases. And they have bases all over the U.S. So wherever you are, if you want to be in Florida, you want to be in Texas, where do you want to be? There's bases all over. Please don't disregard these low-cost carriers. Now, Southwest, even though they're a low-cost carrier, they're kind of a little bit of the outlier because they are such a popular company to work for. And they really do, and that is because they have worked really, really, really hard to take care of their employees and to create that culture over the last, 54 years old? Is that right? Maybe. I don't know. I can't remember. They just had a birthday last month. Okay, next on my list is charter airlines. Charter airlines. Okay, these are not charter airlines like private flight attendant charter. Excuse me. So, these are charter airlines who have big contracts, big airplanes, and their own training program. So for these charter airlines, you get hired the same way you would get hired with any of the other airlines we've talked about. This is not private charter aviation. If you're interested in that, though, there are a couple. I think I have 3 videos with my friend Natalie, who is a private flight attendant, on my YouTube channel. If you wanted to go check those out, we kind of break down the difference between the two. But this is not private flight attendant like on a private jet. This is charter airlines. So airlines who, instead of selling each individual seat, they basically offer the entire plane up for rent or lease. It's leasing it, renting it is, so they will partner with the Department of Defense is a big one. And so that's the military. So when the military needs to move their troops around, the military doesn't have a lot of commercially aircraft, a commercially configured aircraft. That's what I was trying to say, with galleys and seats and stuff. They don't have a lot of that. So instead they hire Omni, or they hire, I think, FSI, which works with, oh my gosh, it just left my brain, Atlas. And then also Eastern, they do DOD, Department of Defense tours or charters. So the military will get on the plane and you will be moving troops to Japan, to wherever the military goes. Asia, a ton. Japan, a ton. Alaska, Germany, a lot to Germany. But also to the Middle East, also to Africa, some amazing other places too. With these airlines, the things you need to know. One is your trips are significantly longer than they are with scheduled commercial service. So we're looking at 19 to 40 day trips. So if that sounds exciting to you, or you're in a place in your life where you could pull that off, you don't have a house plant that has to be watered, or a house husband, or a house pet or a house child that has to be fed and watered every less than 19 days, then this would be an amazing opportunity. You get to see the world immediately. If you want international flying, this is international flying. Immediately international flying, and your layovers are a little bit longer than what we see on the commercial side too. So in a lot of cases, you'll spend a couple days in a city waiting for that next group of troops to be ready for you to move them, instead of just your 17 to 27 hour layover that you'd have with a commercial airline. So pros and cons, right? So really long trips. Also, the longer you're away, the more money you're making, right? So making a little bit more money, longer trips, you get to see the world, get to spend more time there, and you get international right away. Okay, that's one thing. On the other hand, though, they don't have a lot of flight benefits. Flight benefits are reciprocal. I talked a little bit about reciprocal benefits in yesterday's video about commuting and crash pad. So go watch that one if you haven't yet, if you want a full breakdown. But basically, it's reciprocal. Like, I'll let you fly on my airplane if you let my people fly on your airplane. Well, if I'm a charter and I'm renting the whole airplane to the Navy, I don't have seats to let your grandma or your mom fly on my flight to Germany or wherever I'm going. So I can't reciprocate that. Okay, so the flight benefits are less, but you are getting to see some really cool places. Okay. That Department of Defense, other charters that they do. Sports teams, sports balls teams. Okay, so there'll be an aircraft that they will configure specifically for the Ravens. And it's a big plane, and they put big seats in there for big, what is that, football players, and it's all in their colors, and so they do that kind of flying, which is kind of neat. And then they also will sometimes partner with Homeland Security. This would be to help transport people back home to their country where they live or used to live before they were living in the U.S. So they're being transported back home. They'll sometimes do those kinds of charters too. That's another type of charter that these airplanes get used for. And then also even sometimes prisoners. Now, if you've worked commercial, you know that that's not as scary as it sounds, because you've probably had a criminal being transported on your plane. But those are all low risk. So what happens with the higher risk? They go on a charter. Okay? Not alone though. They got all their backup and stuff like that. They got all their friends to escort them. It's not up to you. Okay, so those are charters. And then I also have a section for specialty airlines. Specialty airlines. These are airlines that don't really fit any of the other ones. Specifically, I want to talk about JSX. JSX, Jet Suite X, okay, is what it used to be called, but now it's JSX. Okay, so I love this airline. I think it's such a cool business model. They're growing like crazy. I just saw Phoenix bases opening. They take regional jets, so the smaller regional jets, and configure them all first class. So they are filling the gap between people who would fly commercial or fly first class, but they're not quite at the level where they would charter their own private jet, but they're kind of wanting a little bit more of that private jet experience than they can get on a commercial flight. Okay, so they're filling that gap in. So they fly to Cabo, they fly to fancy ski places in Colorado, they fly to Destin, Florida, they fly to Las Vegas, and Seattle. You can look at the route map. I'm not going to name the whole thing, but they're growing. They have bases now in Orlando. They have a base in Seattle, Phoenix. I think Vegas and Oakland. They still have not Denver. Dallas is the other one. So they have bases kind of all over. And if you are looking for an opportunity to give elevated service, then JSX is for you. So they offer, it's like first class. They board out of the FBO, which is the private, FBO stands for fixed business. I don't know. Somebody put in the comments what it stands for. FBO is the private jet side of the airport. So it's not, the TSA isn't as like take all your stuff off, let me take a picture of you. Like it's just less. The security is a little bit less. Also, I think you only have to get there like 15 minutes before departure. There's a like baggage claim. They take your bags and sew them, and then they're there for you on the tarmac. So it's like an elevated service. Drinks and snacks are available during the flight. I think even like the overhead bins are gone to make it feel more spacious and like a private jet. So you can tell I'm a fan of JSX. I haven't flown them yet, but I really want to soon. So, and I do have flight benefits on them. So they do offer flight benefits, even though they're kind of a traditional, they are able to reciprocate. So because they're able to reciprocate, they can say, yes, your people can fly on my flight because they sell each seat individually. Then they do have flight benefits. Okay. So somebody left a comment. I don't know how to see the comments on this live, so I apologize. I can just see that someone did. I'll answer your question if I can in the chat in a minute. But thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. I hope that this was helpful to find out who's hiring, and also learn a little bit about the different types of airlines out there. Please, please, please consider applying to more than just the mainline ones that you've heard of. Now, of course, if that's your goal, then apply to them. Don't not apply to them, but you don't even know what you don't know. You may find your home at a charter. You may find your home at JSX. You may find your home at a regional. You may find your dream airline in a place that you never thought, and you won't know until you apply. If you don't have to make a decision as to whether or not you want to work for an airline at the application stage. You make that decision at the offer stage. That's when they're making the decision. They're making the decision all along the way, and you get to make the decision all along the way too. There's nothing unethical about saying, I would like to learn more about this airline, and I would like to go through the interview process, and then realizing as you've learned more about them that they aren't exactly what you're looking for, and to graciously decline the offer. Because that, it's like dating. You don't have to, just because you go on a date with a guy doesn't mean you have to marry him if he asks, right? No, dating is about learning about both sides. And that's the same thing with an interview. That is why they put so much information out there during your interview, and they tell you how much you're going to make and what your schedule is going to look like, because they want you to know. They're not trying to seduce you. They're trying to give you the information so that you can make a career choice that works for you. So spend some time on the airline listing page. Apply to an airline you didn't think about today, maybe, or tomorrow. And I can't wait to see which wings you get. See you later.